Okay, record yourself doing the test. Okay, number 2. Okay, so you've got the sample test from online, you record yourself doing the test. Don't have to do all of it at once. Maybe you just do part 1, okay? Then part 2 another day, then part 3 another day, okay? Number 2, listen to yourself. Now, when I was your age, I used to hate the sound of my own voice, all right? Obviously, when I was your age, we didn't have phones, but we had cassette tape recorders. Anyone remember cassette tape recorders? Yeah, they still have cassettes.
But it's a bit of difficult to use.
Yes, used to have cassette, and I used to hate the sound of my own voice, and maybe some of you do too, because we are not used to hearing the sound of our own voice. Okay, but you need to get over that. All right, you need to get used to that because you need to practice listening to yourself. For those of you who think that your voice doesn't sound very nice, maybe you think it sounds ugly, it doesn't. All of you have voices that are good, okay, all of you. And just think, your family has listened to your voice all your life, okay? And they don't go around with their hands in their ears every time you speak because your voice is so ugly, okay? They are used to your voice. So you just need to get used to your voices as well, okay? Any of you who are shy about that, need to get used to that. Okay, you need to listen to yourself. And then the next thing you need to do is, sorry, it's getting a little bit low. Okay, evaluate. Okay, evaluate. Synonym for that is criticize, I suppose, but criticize in a good way. Okay, just listen for, of course, what you are doing. Am I speaking too fast? Okay. Do I have too many pauses? All right. How is my pronunciation? Can I understand everything that I am hearing on the recording? Okay. How is my grammar? Your English by now is good enough that most of you can identify most of your own mistakes. Sometimes when you are speaking, it's very easy to keep making a mistake. You don't realize you are doing it until you listen to yourself back. Does that make sense? And then suddenly you can hear, oh yes, I'm not pronouncing that one correctly. Thank you, Ding Ding. Please leave your phone alone. Okay, so you need to evaluate yourself. So none of this is difficult. Okay, the only difficult part, of course, is making sure you do it. Right. Okay, so, like I say, if you want to get a score of 7 or above on the speaking test, the examiner must be able to understand 100% of the words you are saying. Doesn't mean you can't make a mistake with the word, but they must be able to at least understand what word you are using. Okay, so that means obviously pronunciation. Okay, are you speaking loudly enough? Again, most of you now don't have a problem with that. You practice this enough. Okay, so you are speaking loudly and clearly enough. But again, just be careful that you are pronouncing the words correctly. And again, you don't know until you've recorded yourself. Are you answering the question? Okay, we'll do more about that in just a moment. Are you being fluent? Okay, being fluent just means you are speaking without stopping too much. Okay? And you are not getting lost. Are you answering the question? Do more about that in just a moment. One of the ways to lose marks in the Ielts test is not to answer the question. And you will be surprised how many students, they actually don't answer the question. Again, we'll look at that in the video in just a moment. They actually do something else. Okay, and the examiner gives them not a high mark because they're not actually answering the question. Okay. So, are there any questions about this so far? And then you're listening just to common grammar mistakes. Like, am I speaking in past tense when I'm talking about something in the past? Am I using the correct article? You know, the, and am. You know, the holiday. You know, the trip. I can't, you know, just using that and correctly, little ones like that. Am I using plurals? That is another very common mistake I hear with a lot of students. Forget to put the S on the end of plural words. Right? And again, you have to make sure you're pronouncing the S so the examiner can hear you. If you want to get a high mark, it is still okay to make some small mistakes. All right? You can still get a score of 9 and make some little mistakes. Doesn't matter, but you can't make too many. You can't make big mistakes if you want to get a high score. So these are the sort of things you understand. All right. So, as you know, there are 3 parts to the speaking test. Part 1 is questions about you. In the past, I have suggested how many how many sentences should you use for part 1 of the speaking test? How many? Anyone answer me then? Johnny?
I think it's 2 or 3.
Correct. 2 or 3 is what I suggested. Okay. Sometimes you will get the chance. It's okay to talk longer if it's a subject you are happy to talk longer about. Okay. Sometimes you might get a question where you can only maybe talk 1 sentence. All right. 2 or 3 is ideal, but just depends on the question. But for example, if they ask you, "Do you like coffee?"
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard to make 2 or 3 sentences about that, isn't it? You either say, "Yes, I like," "No, I don't like coffee." You know, "I like tea instead." Okay. Hard to give a long answer for that. All right. So what I'm trying to say is, if you can only give a short answer for 1 question, don't worry that you haven't said 2 or 3 sentences, okay? You will get the chance to do that with another question. So it is okay, maybe even sometimes just to give a 1 sentence answer, if that is all you can think of. Don't suddenly panic and think, "Oh, I've only said 1 sentence, I need to think of another 2 or 3 sentences." That's what teachers say. Okay, if you can only think of 1 sentence, fine. All right? Don't confuse yourself by trying to force yourself. Right? Like I say, you will get the chance for maybe the next question to talk for longer. Does that make sense? So like I say, 2 or 3 sentences is the guide, but maybe sometimes you will get a sentence you can talk longer. Right? Tell me about your favorite food. And maybe you can talk for 4 or 5 sentences about how you don't like pho, but you like something else. You like cake, all right? And my favorite cake is chocolate cake. And my favorite chocolate cake is one that is this big. Yeah. Okay, you can talk a lot about cake, for example. And that's fine, because remember, the Ielts test is not just about English, it is also about, who can tell me? C word. It is about, should know this? Yes, thank you, little communication. What they are testing, of course they are listening for how correct your English is, of course, but they are also testing how well you can communicate. That is what the IELTS test is about. And the ones who get the highest score are the ones that can communicate the best. Okay, so that's always what you've got to keep in mind. Am I communicating? All right. So, part 1 questions. The structure for answering a part 1 question is to answer the question, is number 1, and then explain. Okay, to get your 2 or 3 sentences. Do you like coffee? Do you like coffee?
Yes.
Yes. Explain. Now explain.
I really like coffee because it helped me to stay awake at night.
Great. Good. Okay. See, 2 sentences. You answer the question and explain. Viet. Okay. Do you like football?
No, I think I think he active really too much, and I think it will get easier.
Okay, good. See, he answered the question and he explained. Okay, so that is the strategy for part 1. Any questions with that? All right. Again, I am explaining this to you so you know how to practice at home. So when you are recording yourself and you are doing part 1 questions, and we will do some a little later on if we have time, and we will certainly do them next week, you know exactly what you are listening for. Did I answer the question? Did I give an explanation? Sorry, Jiaming, you are all there on your own. All right, so part 1 questions, answer the question and explain. If you don't like something, say why. If you do like something, say why. You never not answer a question. You will never say the words, I don't know, to any question, all right? That is an automatic way to get a low score. Does that make sense, Ding Ming? Any question you never say to the examiner, I don't know. I've never done that, all right? You always have to give an answer and an explanation, always. And again, I don't think any of you will have any problem with this. You can always think of an answer and an explanation. But that is the strategy for part 1. Part 2. What are you listening for? Often online, if you go online, you will see, of course, there are hundreds of courses that will promise you how to improve your Ielts speaking, how to get a score of 9. This is fine.
Yeah.
Sorry, you.
No.
Okay. You know, how we will guarantee you to get a score of 8 or 9, right? We have the special secret. Okay, we will show you the special tip. Yeah, how you can instantly improve your score. The news is they are lying to you. Okay, I'm sorry. They want to get your money. All right, so they of course will say something like this in their advertising because they want you to pay for the course.
Bạn có hiểu ý của thầy không? Hiểu thấy được không?
I don't think you are spoiling everyone's business.
Why not? I'm spoiling their business. Okay, so there is no one secret, as I'm sure you all know by now. If there was a secret, everyone would do it. If there was a secret to suddenly being able to get band 9, okay, I would tell you, okay, then that would save you coming to class ever again, okay? But there is a tip I can give you for speaking part 2. I have already told you this many times in the past, but I will remind you because this, like I say, is a revision class to help you study at home. Okay, part 2. So like I say, there is no secret, but there is a tip for your strategy, okay, and the tip is this. And again, this is nothing new. I've told you this before. Anyone tell me how I'm going to finish this sentence? Don't focus on the question. Not the question. What do you get as part of a part 2?
It's a women.
This is speaking part 2, so not writing.
You get notes and you write some ideas on that.
Not quite. Anyone know the word I'm going to write? B-U. Yeah?
Bullet.
Yes. What is the next word?
Bullet point.
Yeah, bullet points. Okay. So again, some of you have forgotten, so I will remind you and show you now. Okay, here are some sample. You should all be able to see this. Sorry, Charming, I know you're a wee way away. Okay, this is what you will get, of course, for part 2 speaking. Okay, something that looks like this. All right, these are called bullet points. All right. So for those of you who can't see this one, okay, the bullet points are: what's your favorite food? What do you usually eat for breakfast? Okay. Do you have a favorite food from another country? Okay. The bullet points for this one. Okay. Describe a city you would like to visit. You should say what city it is. Okay. When do you want to go there? Okay. When do you, or what are you going to see there? Okay. Why do you want to visit that place? Those are the bullet points. The secret or the tip is don't focus on the bullet points. Right? Because if you just focus on the bullet points, some of these bullet points are very simple. Okay? What city do you want to visit? Tokyo. When do you want to go there? Next year. Okay? How are you going to get there? I'm going to go on the plane. Okay? That's taken me 5 seconds to answer. All right? I have 1 minute 55 seconds left. Okay? To fill in. So if you just follow the bullet points, often you will run out of things to say. The bullet points, yes, can be useful, right, as a guide, but you don't want to focus on them entirely. What you do want to focus on, what I do with my pen, is instead you focus on the question itself. So in this case, this one is describe a city you would like to visit. Okay, that is the question. And again, I think I've told most of you this. The easiest way to answer a part 2 question is to tell us what. Out of room again. Tell a. Yes, tell a story. Tell a story about something. So yes, you can use the bullet points to guide you if they're useful, but you don't have to use the bullet points. Okay, so that is the tip for this. The examiner is not sitting there saying, did they answer this bullet point? Did they answer that bullet point? No, they are listening for you to communicate about the main question, which in this case is, what city would you like to visit? What city would you like to visit? England? Tell me, what is the city you would like to visit?
City.
Quickly, yeah.
City. I like.
Yeah, what city would you like to visit in the future?
I like to visit Paris.
Paris. Okay, right, visit Paris.
There are so many places I want to visit in the future.
It's a great start to an answer. That is a great start to an answer. Okay. If you had to choose one, you would say. Okay, great. See, that is a great way to start an answer to a question. Okay, there are so many places I would like to visit. You notice she is communicating to me. Okay, she's not just saying Paris or Tokyo or London. Okay, she is communicating. She has started a conversation. Very good. Okay. Does that make sense to you? You have started a conversation. Remember, you are trying to treat the examiner like a friend that you have only just met. So you want to try and have a conversation. That is the way to approach these tests. Be a 10. What is a city you would like to visit in the future?
I think it would be
London. Okay. Yes. Going around the room, what is a city you would like to visit in the future? To? Can't hear. Okay. Vienna.
If I have a chance, I will choose because it's the paradise of entertainment.
Okay, good.
Of course, I would choose Tokyo as my favorite city to visit in the future because
in the spring, then we got a beautiful scenery by sakuras, and on top of that,
Okay, good. Okay, so already he has started on his story.
I didn't
Okay.
finish.
I know, don't need to. I just want to hear the city. All right. Your turn. What city would you like to visit, Changyu?
I think it's same line. I think I will go to Tokyo because not only they have like beautiful sakura garden. I would like to go into some bookstore and buy some comic.
Okay, so now he is starting to tell a story. So this, like I say, it's not really a secret, but this is the tip to give you, okay? I haven't given you any bullet points. All I have given you is the main question, and that is what you focus on when you're doing part 2. And this is what you should be doing when you are practicing at home and recording yourself. You need to tell a story for 2 minutes. If the story is based on some experience, okay, it makes it even easier because all you then are just telling a story from your memory, one you already know. Okay, so just to go with Chung Hu's example, he wants to go to Tokyo because you would like, one reason is you would like to visit some bookstores. Yes? And visit the Sakura Gardens. Okay, so maybe what he could do from then on with the story is he wants to go to a bookstore. What sort of book would you like to look at in the bookstore? Manga. Okay, so he likes manga. All right, that's fine. And then he can say what maybe is his favorite manga comic or book. All right, and then he can say it is my favorite manga comic or book. It's called whatever it's called, and the story in it is about this. Okay. Are you getting with the idea that I'm trying to give you? All right. He is still answering the main topic. Okay. What city would you like to go to? So he said, I want to go to Tokyo. I want to go to a bookstore. I want to look for manga because manga is my favorite sort of book, and my favorite manga story is this. Okay. And then he can talk maybe for 30 seconds about his favorite manga story. All right. This is just an example I'm giving. Okay, so you're still talking about something that you would do in Tokyo, right? But now you are giving a story from your own experience. All right, we will practice more about this next week. But at the moment, like I say, I'm giving you the strategy, the plan for how you answer these questions. A lot of students, they get worried when they think they have to talk for 2 minutes. 2 minutes is a long time if you are not used to it. All right, and a lot of students, like I say, get nervous. So if you are nervous about this, obviously you break it down into small steps. The first time you just talk for 30 seconds. All right, practice talking for 30 seconds about whatever topic you have chosen. Next time, make it 45 seconds. Once you can do 45 seconds, keep going, 1 minute, and so on. Does that make sense? All right, that is the strategy for how to do this.
So we have to speak for at least 2 minutes.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, have I not explained this to you before?
I guess.
Maybe not. Maybe for some people, maybe not. That's good. Please ask questions. That's great. So you have to talk for 2 minutes in part 2 of the Ielts test. If you talk for longer than 2 minutes, the examiner will stop you. Okay, so 2 minutes only. If you are still talking while he stops you, doesn't matter. Okay? You don't have to finish exactly in 2 minutes, but you do need to try to fill 2 minutes. So again, we will practice this next week, but the secret is don't focus on the bullet points you get, you focus on the question, okay? And to answer the question, you try to tell a story about some experience that you have had related to the question. All right, like I say, we'll practice more about this later. In part 3 of the speaking test, they will ask you your opinion about something or how you feel about something. Okay, for example, Is it better, Chang Hu, to grow up in the city or the countryside?
I think it's better to grow up in the city
The city, okay. And then you would say because.
because
Yeah, you have to give some reasons because, all right. And then you try and give an example. So again, this is the strategy for part 3. Okay, so as I said, part 3 are opinion or feeling questions. All right. For these, you have to give a longer answer, longer than in part 1. Maybe you are aiming for something like 7 or 8 sentences, but you don't need to count them when you're doing it. You don't need to think, oh, if I talk for 6 or 7, it doesn't matter. Okay, you just answer the question as well as you can by following this pattern. Okay. Number 1, obviously, answer the question. Okay, part 2, explain. Okay, do you think it's better to grow up in the city or the countryside? I think it's better to grow up in the city because you explain. Last part of your answer is going to be a what? Example. Okay. Very similar, some of you might have already noticed, to part 2 writing. Okay. Very similar to the layout of a main body paragraph. You answer the question, you explain, and you give an example. As I said before, to any part 3 question, some of them will be hard in the test. Some of them will be hard, but you still never say, I don't know, or I can't think of an answer, all right? Because then you automatically will get a 0 score for that question, all right? You always have to give an answer, have to think of something, all right? There will be, I think for you, no questions where you can't think of something to say. Yes, you can say something like, I haven't thought about that before, or I'm not familiar with that topic. But, okay, here's what I can say, all right? Remember, you're just communicating, so you have to say something. Like I said before, never say no or you don't know to any question. That is not communicating. Okay, so practice this very quickly now. I'll give you a different question. Okay, do you think it is better to do things on your own or with other people?
I think it's better to do things with other people.
Yeah,
Because
good explanation.
when we do multitask with a team, we can share the work to each other, and everything will be fine as long as they do their jobs well.
Okay, good explanation. Next one.
And such as when you do a presentation, you can have a team to split the work, such as a guy will do the PowerPoint, the others will do presentation and finding the context.
Okay, good. All right, so you can see he answered, okay, using all parts of the strategy. For part 3 questions, this is what you need to do. All right. Examples, sometimes, of course, you won't be able to think of one. Doesn't matter too much. Only if you can. But certainly you must answer the question and you must explain. All right. So just like you did in part 1, but of course for part 3, your explanation will be longer, just like his was. Okay. And then it's always good if you can think of an example, but if you can't, don't panic. All right. Next question. Why do you think some people enjoy doing dangerous sports?
From my perspective, I think doing dangerous activities can make them more excited and
Okay, good. Now, yeah, you answered the question. Good. Now, explanation.
it make people more exciting because there is a dangerous activity. So
Okay, that's fine. You have to think. Yeah, that's good. You have to think of an explanation. Can you give an example?
for example, it can be said to scuba diving or bungee jumping. For scuba diving, when it is when we dive into the ocean and watch coral fish, and on the other hand, the bungee jumping is when you jump from high, and you have a rope to
Yeah, you're doing okay. Okay, you're doing okay. This is fine. Okay, but we're just practicing this. So I'm just wanting to make sure that you understand, okay, the structure for answering the question.
yes.
That's fine. Okay, do you think some dangerous activities should be banned?
From my view, I feel excuse me, can you repeat your question?
Yeah, do you think some dangerous activities should be banned? Should be made illegal?
I think dangerous activity should not be banned
Okay, good, you answered the question. Now, explain.
because a dangerous activity can be
Can be a dangerous activity. Okay, everyone. So don't worry if you can't give a good answer at this stage. Okay, you have plenty of time to practice for the exam for next year. But just like I say, I want you to get used to doing the structure. All right? Okay.
dangerous.
Yeah. What's an example of a dangerous activity?
Like me say is bungee jumping
Mhm.
or scuba diving.
Yeah. So then you think, why should bungee jumping be banned?
Because to the people
Yeah.
not in chance,
They can kill themselves. Okay, it's a reason for it to be banned. Okay.
but dangerous activity can be by many ways. So it's dangerous activity is depend on people, not
Yeah.
a general rule.
Good. So you notice Ding Ming. Okay. Note he is communicating now with me. Okay. So don't worry that you are having trouble with the question. All right. Doesn't matter at this stage. See what I mean, Ding Ming?
Yes.
He is communicating with me. He has started to talk to me. Yes. Just communicating.
Yeah.
That is what the aim of this is. Okay. Little one question for you. Okay. Why do some people prefer to visit a city when they go on holiday instead of going to the beach? Okay, so remember, some of these questions will be quite hard because they are testing you. Why do some people prefer to go to the city? Good. Good. Okay. Okay, good. Next, this should be easy for this question. Example. Yeah. What is an example of something you would do in a city?
We would go local cuisine.
Local cuisine. Okay, so you go to visit different restaurants.
Yes,
and try local cuisine. Okay.
Famous.
All right. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, so just remember you are answering the question. Shh, everyone. You are answering the question, you're giving an explanation and an example. For a question like that, an example was easy. You know, what do you do in a city? Well, so many things. Vietnam, do you think it is better to grow up in the city or the countryside?
In my point of view, I think grow up in the city is better than grow in the countryside. Because city has
Just give me one reason. Yeah.
have a convenient lifestyle, and when you grow up, you have a good education and good work.
For example.
For example, in the city, you have popular schools such as Harvard or like mine and Zetidon.
Yeah, okay, good. You have the structure correct. Okay. Harling,
Yes.
why do some people enjoy doing dangerous sports? Okay, sorry everyone, please be quiet so I can hear the other person speak. Thank you. Why do you think some people enjoy doing dangerous sports?
In my opinion, I think people who enjoy dangerous sport because it's like they feel like interesting, and when you
Mhm.
I have no idea to have an adjective to.
Okay, so can someone please help her with some adjectives? A dangerous sport will make you feel what? Sorry? Stimulated. Okay, stimulated. Yeah, that's a good one. Thrilling. Okay, can you please say the word for me, please? So remember what I said before about pronunciation? You have to make sure your pronunciation is clear. Thrilling. Thrilling. Better. Thrilling. Quite. Your pronunciation is very thrilling. Okay. Thrilling.
What about euphoria?
Euphoria. Good try. So in this case, the adjective is euphoric. Okay. Euphoria is the noun. Okay, but you are looking for the adjective in this case. Okay. Thrilling is an adjective. Okay, it's good. Make you very thrilling, make you stimulated, okay? Euphoric, okay, ledok ang, okay, that's a good word, great word, okay, but euphoric is the adjective.
Can you spell what? Euphoric.
Okay? Euphoric. Euphoric makes you feel really, who can tell me? Makes you just feel just super happy. Okay? There's another way of describing it. If you feel euphoric, okay? You just feel so happy. Alright? Alright? That's a good word. I'm glad you know this word. Okay, that's good. You're improving your vocabulary. That's great. Okay. So, that is some adjectives that help you. Okay, so doing a dangerous activity, you can feel euphoric. Okay, you can feel very stimulated. Okay, you can feel it's very thrilling. Thrilling. Rapture, yeah, it's another good one. Okay, rapture again is you just feel, it's so exciting that you can barely think. Rapture. Rapture. Or even just a simple synonym adjective like excited. Very simple one. You do know enough synonyms. Okay. Alright, and then you just need to give an example of a dangerous sport. We've already heard some bungee jumping, scuba diving, skydiving, jumping out of a plane. Okay, dangerous sport. Mountain climbing, might fall off the mountain. Kill yourself. Okay. Alright. Do you think it's better to grow up in the country or the city?
From my perspective, I think grow up in the country, it's not so fast. Can I start again?
Yes, and you can actually, that's a good point, in the exam you can say that, okay? If you start off and then suddenly you decide, actually no, I think I would say something else, is okay, all right?
Yes.
Okay, so the main reason in any exam, the speaking exam, and like I say, most of you have told me you're doing the exam sometime next year, so that's why I'm preparing you for this now. Okay, it is okay, number one, to start an answer again. Okay, remember the exam is about communication. Okay, so if you start off saying something to anyone, then suddenly you get a better idea. You just start again when you are communicating normally, so that is fine. Number two, while I think about it, is if the examiner in the speaking test uses a word you don't understand, ask them. Okay? If they say to you something like, using the word music, all right? If they say, does eating fur make you feel euphoric? Fur. Fur.
Very.
Yeah. Okay. Does eating fur make you feel euphoric? And you don't know what euphoric means. Okay. You can ask the examiner. Okay. Euphoric, I don't understand. What does that mean? Okay. You can ask the examiner. In the speak, you can't for the writing, of course, or the listening or the reading. You can't say, what does this word mean? Right? Because those tests are tests of the word. You have to know the word. But in the speaking test, if they use a word you don't understand, you can ask them. So like I say, if the examiner says, does eating fur make you feel euphoric? So, what does euphoric mean? Okay, and they will tell you. So much better to ask than to try and guess what it means and give a wrong answer. Okay? All right. Sorry, where did we get to? That's a lost track. What was the question I asked you? Oh yes, is it better to grow up in the city or the countryside?
Yes, for my suggestion, I think living in a city is better than living in the country because the city provide you with some amenities like high quality educational institutions.
Good, okay, so you've answered the question, you're explaining, and you've given examples. Great, perfect. Ding Ming, are there some disadvantages to living in a city? Yes, are there some disadvantages to living in a city?
In my opinion, disadvantages in live in this you can see.
Yeah, disadvantages to living in a city.
Disadvantages in living city. My opinion is
All right, remember what is a disadvantage? Disadvantage is a bad thing about something, okay? Okay, what is one bad thing about living in the city? What is one bad thing about living in Hanoi?
that is
Traffic is obvious one. Traffic. Pollution.
pollution.
Okay. Crowd. Too many people. Yeah. So there are lots. Okay. So not hard to answer a question like that. Charming. I haven't forgotten. Okay. Is it better to grow up in the city or the countryside?
I think it will be better to grow in a city because you will have more opportunity in school or the job that you want. Example like there will be more school than in the countryside that you can choose to learn. Or there are many places that you can apply for the job that you want in the countryside, not the place that I think.
Good. Okay, you follow the structure. So remember this lesson, I'm not too worried about your answers. And by the way, remember in the test for these questions, there is no right or wrong answer. Okay, the answer is whatever you say, as is. Okay, so just to, I'll show you the video in just a moment, but just before we start that, just to review what I said, remember we're looking at how to practice at home, okay? You need to find a test online, okay? You need to have an app on your phone so you can record yourself. You need to practice recording yourself doing the test, okay? And of course, in lessons, we will be practicing this anyway, okay? You then need to listen to yourself, okay, and evaluate it or criticize it, okay? And then, so that's what we looked at, and then I just reminded you the different strategies for each part of the speaking test. Part 1 of the speaking test, okay, answers generally about 2 or 3 sentences, but depends on the question. And your answer should follow the structure, answer the question and explain, okay? Make sense? Answer the question and explain. Part 2 of the speaking test. You have to talk for how long? Part 2 of the speaking test? How many minutes? 2 minutes. Okay, you should know this. 2 minutes. You are supposed to talk for 2 minutes. Okay. Do not focus on the bullet points. Okay. Yes, of course, use the bullet points as being useful. But what do you focus on? What do you focus on for part 2 of the speaking test? Ding Ming. What do you focus on? Part 2 of the speaking test.
Focus on the question.
Focus on the question. Very good. Thank you. You focus on the question. So remember, the bullet points are useful, but you don't have to use them. Okay? They don't care. All they want to do is hear you answer the question. And you focus on the question, and then you try and tell some story, okay, from your experience, okay, related to the question. Okay. Part 3, okay, longer answer. Okay, they will ask you your opinion about something, like I just did, or how you feel about something. You answer the question, you explain, you give an example, if you can think of one. Are there any questions about that?
Can I use an idiom in my speaking?
Of course, of course. Yeah. Yes, you can use idioms, but you don't have to. Okay. I read a survey of people who had got a score of band 9, okay, and in general they might use one idiom the whole speaking test, okay. So idioms are useful but not essential, okay, or not that important. Of course you can use an idiom, yes, if you are using it correctly. So yes, the answer is yes. But you don't have to. You can easily get a score of 9 without using any idiom. All right, so for the rest of the lesson now we're going to watch a video of how to turn a score of 5 or 6 into a score of 8 or 9. Xia Ming, would you like to come a little bit closer, please? Okay, maybe just fit in beside Viet there. Next week, by the way, in our lesson, we will practice all of this, okay? But first of all, like I say, I just want to give you an idea
Can't you
of
just
the
press
strategy.
Alt?
Sorry?
ALT and tab? Can't you just press Alt and tab?
I probably can, yes. I'm just used to doing it this way. Okay. Start.
First impression with the examiner. And also, and I think more importantly, it allows you to relax into the test. If you relax into the test in part 1.
Okay, so sorry, he is talking about part 1 of the speaking test. Okay, I've started the video a little bit in to save time. All right, he's talking about part 1 of the speaking test. This gives you a chance, is what he is saying, to make a good impression on the examiner, okay, by showing that you are confident, all right, that you are not too nervous, all right, and also gives you a bit of a chance to warm up, okay, by answering the shorter questions. Okay, that's what he has said so far.
And you're going to be much more relaxed and more fluent throughout the entire test, so it is very, very important that you get part 1 right. So there are 3 things that band 5 and 6 students do differently from band 7, 8 and 9 students. So I'd like you to look at this clip of 2 students answering the same question in part 1. And I want you to think about which one might be at a band 5 or a band 6 level, and which one might be at a band 7 or band 9 level, but really think why. Why are they at that level? Not that they sound more impressive or they have a better accent or they're using fancier words. What are the things that you could copy or that you could stop doing that will really improve your score?
So I grew up in Dubai, and it's actually one of the most populated countries in the GCC. People come here to visit for tourism, and it's actually a good spot for to
This is
visit
the question,
the
by the way.
largest,
Where are you from?
The largest tower. It's called the Burj Khalifa.
I'm from India. To be specific, I am born and raised in Delhi, and my mom is from Bombay, and my dad is from Kerala. But I've grown up my entire life here in Delhi, and I went to school here, went to university here.
First student.
Okay, before we hear what he is going to say, which student was better? First one or second? The second one was better. Anyone know why? Why was the second student better? More fluent, but there's more to it than that. Okay.
And the second girl, she speaks straight into the point.
She did. Okay. I can express it even better than that. The second girl answered the question. Okay. The first girl started to give something of a geography lesson. Okay. I come from Dubai. Dubai is the biggest city in this region. Okay. Dubai has many things to do. Okay. All right. Okay. She she talked about things that weren't really necessary. The second one talks about where she is from, where her parents come from, okay? How long she has been there, where she grew up. That is answering the question. He is going to explain why that is important.
Is doing something that examiners are trained to spot. This problem creates the worst first impression that could even get you a band 0, and it is memorized answers. So why is this such a big problem? Well, first of all, the Ielts test is not a memorization test. It is testing your ability to communicate clearly in English, not to memorize a bunch of sentences and repeat them to the examiner. It's also considered cheating. Think about it this way. If you really knew how to speak English to the level that you are trying to get to, would you need to memorize answers? No. And it also lowers your score in 2 very, very important ways. It makes you sound worse. Listen to this clip and think about how memorization might have led to a low score.
I come from India. India is a very populated country. It's the most populated country in the world right now. And we have lots of cultures, lots of traditions, and we have many, many different languages. And we also have different religions, and we also celebrate them very much.
So did you notice the first problem? I want you to think back to when you were a child in school, and think back to those lessons where the teacher got you and the other students to read out loud from the book. How did you feel? Do you think that you sounded fluent or not so fluent? This is exactly how you sound when you memorize an answer. You sound like a robot. But don't worry, there's an easy way to fix that, and I'll tell you about it in a second. So did you spot any other issues? Let me explain here what the other issue was. So I want you to imagine this is the destination that you're going for. So you're trying to get to a band 9. And we have here student A, and we have here student B. So the examiner asks them, tell me about your hometown. Student A talks about the history of their hometown, culture of their hometown, famous things in their hometown, the food, the weather, the nightlife, and on and on and on. Student B just directly answers the question, and this is what the students do.
Doctors, nurses and engineers who have ever dreamed of living in Australia now have an opportunity if they have the qualifications and experience. Australia is well known for...
They've gone off topic. And this is why many of you complain about examiners constantly interrupt you and stop you mid-sentence, it's not because the examiner is rude. In part 1, they have to ask you a range of different questions. Think between 9 and 12 different questions. And if you're giving these very, very long memorized answers, they're going to stop you in the middle of your sentence. You're going to feel, oh, the examiner thinks I'm doing really badly. You're going to get more stressed, and you're going to sound even more robotic, and your score is going to be terrible. So now you might be thinking, well, how long should they actually be? You're saying don't give very long answers, but should I give short answers? That's not good as well. No, let's look at what band 7 and 9 students actually do. The strategies students at band 7, 8 and 9 use are incredibly simple for part 1. I discovered this when I was teaching in Saigon in Vietnam, and what I used to do was I would go in maybe 10 or 15 minutes before the class started, and I would speak to the students about things that happened at the weekend, or sports, or the weather, just normal chit-chat questions that you would talk to a friend or a work colleague or a teacher about. And during that 10 or 15 minutes before the class started, a lot of students gave band 9 answers. Then once the class started, I did something interesting. I would get one of the best students, the students that were the most fluent, that were at a band 9 level in those 10 or 15 minutes, and I would do a mock one-on-one speaking test with them, and they would go from band 9 to saying something, at the weekend I went to Vung Tau, I like seafood, they have nice seafood, it was by the sea, it was nice by the sea. So from a band 9 down to a band 6 or 7. And I instantly improved the speaking scores of the entire class by just saying one thing. Why don't you speak in the same way as you did 10 minutes ago? You see, in the 10 minutes before class, they were talking to me like a normal human being, like a normal conversation. They spoke naturally, like they would to a friend or one colleague, and they answered the question directly without going.
Okay, so just to review, okay, this is what you are aiming for. Excuse me. And remember, the reason I'm showing you all this is that I want you to know where we are going, okay? It's very hard sometimes to think, why is teacher telling me this? Okay, teacher is telling you this because he wants you to get as high a score as you, excuse me, as you possibly can. All right, and this is what your goal is. Okay, sometimes you don't know how to improve sometimes if you don't know what you are trying to achieve. So, what you are trying to achieve in your answer to get a high score, number 1, natural conversation. You will notice when you come into class, same thing, I often ask you, the ones who come early, you know, what are you doing? What did you do last week? Okay, how is school going? All right, what have you been doing recently? All right, just natural conversation. And exactly as he said there, you all answer me very naturally. Okay, but what he is trying to say there is that as soon as he tries to make it into a test, okay, people think, oh, it's a test, I've got to talk in a different way. No, always you need to be talking naturally. Okay, that's what the aim is. Now, this takes, of course, some practice to be able to answer naturally in a test, which is a stressful situation. But that's what we practice for. Anyone got any questions about that? Okay, so need to be natural, normal conversation, okay? Need to stay on the topic. Memorize answers. Sometimes students think this is a good way to prepare because often in task 1 you will be asked, you will be asked very similar questions. You know, you're going to be asked, where is your hometown? Okay. What is good about Hanoi? Right? What subjects do you do at school? Very basic questions. And some people think, great, I will memorize an answer to these questions. Easy. You know, but the examiners, they are always looking for that, someone who has a memorized answer. And you can especially tell one of those students there if they start to give maybe a history lesson about Hanoi. I come from Hanoi. Hanoi is the capital of Vietnam. It was founded 2,000 years ago. There are 23 different ethnic varieties of people living in Vietnam. You know, 23 of them live in Hanoi. You know, is you start to sound a bit like a robot, okay? Like you are just reciting Wikipedia. Okay? Instead of just saying, where do you come from? I come from Hanoi. You know, that is my hometown. I've lived here for 20 years. My grandparents moved to Hanoi from Hoi An. Okay? All right, that sort of thing, natural, not giving lots of facts and figures. Once you start reciting or talking about facts and figures, they're going to think, they've memorized the answer. And remember, it is not a test of memory, it's a test of what? Communication. Always remember this way. Okay. So, to get a band 9 or to get a high score, okay, you want to have normal conversation, you want to sound natural, you want to just stay on topic. Okay? You don't memorize answers, okay? You don't want to sound like a robot, which people tend to do when they've memorized an answer, because they've practiced it so many times, okay, it doesn't sound so natural when you say it. Okay, and you want to stay on the topic. Are there any questions about that, anyone? Come back, little mouse. What's a mouse? Yeah, thank you.
Off topic, and I call this test.
Under the TV.
Under the TV? Thank you. Okay, you can start it again. Thank you.
Oh, students go from sounding very
推動 IELTS 持久課，啲老師特別點解 IELTS 手冊啱前3班下，
very fluent to as soon as the test starts, sounding like a robot. But how can you overcome that? There's one simple strategy that Band 9 students use, and I want you to watch these clips and try and figure out the strategy. Is your daily routine different at the weekend compared to during the week?
Yes, 100%. So the weekdays of work, mainly being productive, paying the bills, and the weekends I get to do whatever I want to do. So really treasure and enjoy my weekends.
Do you prefer to read magazines or newspapers?
Definitely magazines, mostly on topics of fashion or interior design. This is what I really like because I like to see creative sides from all over the world. I like to see what people are talking about, what's new, what's trending, and I like to learn. Like I like to have knowledge of things of like what is this called or what is that called? Because usually when you see pictures, you don't usually know what it's called. So when you read a magazine or when you get the knowledge, that's where you get to know. Oh, this fabric is called this, or this decoration is called that. So I think it's very good on information.
Okay, part 1 question, very long answer, all right, but that's okay because she is explaining. So what both those students are doing, they are answering the question, they're giving an explanation. Remember, that is your strategy for part 1, okay? Answer the question, give an explanation. If it's a long explanation for some, doesn't matter. You are communicating, okay? You are showing the examiner that you know how to communicate in English. You will also notice both those students very relaxed, okay? Very natural. Sound like they are just having a conversation. All right? You notice they are not speaking too fast. They are speaking at normal speed. Okay.
So did you spot it? They simply directly answer the question and then add a little bit more detail. This detail could be an explanation or an example, personal story, and if that's confusing or overwhelming, just answer the question like you would if you were in a coffee shop with a friend. Remember, they're testing your ability to speak naturally in English, not to memorize a bunch of answers and impress the examiner with fancy structures. So let's now talk about part 2 of the speaking test. Part 2 is often the most feared part of the problem.
Just before we finish part 1, any questions about that? Is that all quite clear to everyone? Okay, what I want to hear when we do part 1, exercises. Okay, I want to hear answer the question, explanation. All right.
On the speaking test, because it requires you to do something that a lot of students are uncomfortable doing or they're not used to doing. So in part 2, you'll be given a cue card that looks like this. And I'll ask you to speak about that topic for up to 2 minutes. This can be quite scary because it's difficult to speak about anything for 2 minutes, especially told you it wasn't part 2 that is scary. It is the strategy that students use that leads to low scores. And what's also really interesting is when students stop doing these things that band 5 and 6 students do, and they switch to our strategy that our band 7, 8 and 9 students use, not only do their scores improve, but part 2 becomes something that they look forward to. It is their chance to shine and show the examiner how great they are without any worry, without any stress. First, listen to this student and see if you can spot any problems with what they're doing. Describe some food or drink that you learned to prepare. I don't really prepare much food or drink because my wife does most of that for me, but food or drink you learned to prepare. Does a cocktail count? I know how to make a Bloody Mary. When and where you learned to prepare this? I learned to prepare it one morning when I was thirsty. How you learned to prepare it? I just looked up on YouTube and explain how you felt about learning to prepare it. I don't know. It quenched my thirst. So did you spot what the problem was? What most students do is they look at the topic and then they talk about bullet point number 1, then bullet point number 2, then bullet point number 3. Then bullet point number 4. But why is that a problem? Well, first of all, there might be one or more of these bullet points that you just don't have much to say about them. So what food was it? Cocktail. It was a Bloody Mary. But there's not much you can really say about that apart from what the thing is. How I learned to do it, again, I learned it on YouTube. Not a big deal. I can't really talk much about that. So it's really limiting the amount I can talk. And remember, it is a test of speaking for up to 2 minutes. Then there might be a bullet point that you just feel uncomfortable talking about, or you don't really know what to say for that. So explain how you felt. I don't really have major feelings about Bloody Marys and about cocktails. I just made it up on the spot. That makes it extremely difficult to speak fluent.
Sorry, just stop there. Bloody Mary, have you heard of this before? Bloody Mary is a drink. It is the name of a drink, a cocktail, okay, with alcoholic drink. Okay, it's called a Bloody Mary. I can't remember, I think it is made of vodka. Have you heard of vodka?
Yes.
Vodka and tomato juice. Okay, so it looks a bit like blood, that's what it's like. I don't know why it's called Mary, but I have no idea.
For up to 2 minutes. And then once you get to the end there, after, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds for the average student, you run out of things to say and you're like, oh, I've only been talking for 30 seconds, I'm going to fail my test, and everything gets worse and worse as you get more stressed and more stressed. So this is the most common strategy, and what does it lead to? Poor fluency, run out of things to say, and feel like you've failed. I've done so many tests with students who are doing really well in part 1, and I was like, the student might be at a band 7 or a band 8, and then they use this strategy and completely fall apart. So what do band 7, 8 and 9 students do differently? I want you to listen to this student who got a band 9 and look at the cue card and think about what they're doing. What are they doing differently to these band 5 and 6 students?
Food that I learned to prepare. I'm pescatarian, so I don't eat meat, but I love food. And I have a gluten intolerance, so I can't eat a lot of the Indian food. So this is a little recipe that I learned how to make, which is basically paneer. We call it cottage cheese in English. It's like a spiced tomato base with cottage cheese, with paratha, roti, but it's made out of ragi flour, which is gluten-free and super rich in calcium and very good for people with diabetes, although I don't have diabetes. It's very nutritious, basically. Together, it's the perfect meal. It keeps you full. I love being healthy. I try to be as healthy as I can. So, yeah, that's probably my go-to meal in the evening because I don't have to think about. I have all the ingredients. I don't have to think about how to make it. It's kind of automatic, and it's delicious, which is the most important part. It's not compromising on the taste because I can't eat salmon and rice every day. I want to eat something that's more flavorful and nutritious.
Okay, just notice please how natural she is. Okay? She's not speaking like she is giving a speech. She is pausing quite often, isn't she? While she thinks of the next thing to say. Okay? That is natural communication. Alright? Just like when you have a conversation with someone. they don't answer you like they are giving a speech. Okay? Well, the dish that I most like making is banh mi, because banh mi is my favorite dish, and banh mi is made of bread and it also has some salad and meat in it, and I like the bread to be really fresh. Okay, that doesn't sound natural. Okay, it sounds like I'm trying to give a talk. You just want to sound more natural. So that again is what I'm going to aim for when I'm teaching you. Does that make sense? Okay. Sorry, it hasn't got long to go. Everyone.
Em chọn là thi lại listening nên được áp dụng không?
On mistakes that trip up many students and learn the key techniques that could skyrocket your score. So if you're ready to go from fear and stress
back to the
exactly what
to
to do
around
today
the
and have total confidence, keep watching the video. So the IELTS speaking test has 3 parts, so I've divided this page into 3.
Thank you.
Really well in part 1, as the student might only be the student who got about 9.
Paratha, roti, right? It's made out of roti. It's very nutritious, basically.
Close enough.
Together it's beautiful. I love being healthy. I try to be as healthy as I can. So, yeah, that's probably my go-to meal in the evening because I don't have to think about.
Can you all understand what she is saying, by the way?
Teacher, but can you say what band I can get?
What band you can get right now?
If I say the orange for the
either Greek
natural.
yogurt or regular yogurt.
Ask me
And
later.
add a couple of Indian spices into it, mix it up. So the spiciness of the veg, cottage cheese,
that is the natural. And if I say the natural,
the texture,
what
drier,
band I can get?
stiffer texture of the ragi,
If you say a vegetable.
and the
Same
creaminess,
for the
coldness of the yogurt is
I'm not sure I understand your question.
So hopefully
Sorry,
you spotted
ask me later when you finish.
the
Okay?
bullet points. Instead, what they do is they focus on the main topic. So they're always talking about the main topic, but they're not necessarily using all of the bullet points.
Okay, this is what I said to you before. Okay, focus on the main topic, the main question.
Bullet points.
Don't
so
focus on the
main
bullet
topic. They are adding things that they feel more comfortable talking about whilst talking about that main topic. For example, if you got this cue card, you might feel very comfortable talking about these 2 bullet points, but this 3rd bullet point is going to take only a few seconds to talk about. And then this 4th bullet point is something that you don't really know anything about and you don't feel comfortable talking about. But you might find it easy to talk about other things related to the main topic, such as a description of the main topic, a story, how you feel about it, something about the past or something that you hope to do in the future related to the main topic, or any other point that you feel comfortable talking about. Now, should you use all of those ideas? No, just the ones that will help you speak fluently for up to 2 minutes. And anyone that tells you you must talk about each bullet point in order doesn't know what they're talking about. Now let's move on to, in my opinion, the most difficult part of the speaking test, part 3. Why is it so difficult? I want you to listen to these students and think about the questions. Don't focus too much on the answers, but focus on the questions being asked. And think about how you might respond to them. Do you think that it's better to buy a property or rent a property? Should the same regulations apply to online advertising?
Everywhere. You mean by the regulation on the I cannot find the name, how to say it. Let's jump to another question.
So as you heard, part 3 questions are a lot more challenging than the typical part 1 question. But like everything with the IELTS test, the problem is not the questions. The problem is the strategy that students use to answer them. So let's start off with the things that you should not do. The most important thing that you should avoid is no response. If you say to the examiner, I don't know, or just nothing comes out of your mouth, or I've even had students burst out laughing in my face when I ask them some part 3 questions, what you are saying to the examiner is, my English is not good enough to answer this question. But what happens if you really do have no idea? Some of these questions are very, very difficult. We'll give you a strategy for how to tackle any question, no matter what the topic is, in a second. The second thing that you should never do is give a short And short answers in part 3 of the test normally have nothing to do with your English level or your speaking skills. 15 minutes of talking in a foreign language in a very stressful situation with somebody scary and horrible like me looking at you and judging you is an exhausting process. It's often more related to fatigue, to tiredness, than it is to English ability. So what they do is something that you should never do, is they surrender. They just give up. They're just saying, I surrender, I don't
Never
want to
give
answer
up.
more of these questions.
Okay.
My level is not as high as you
Never
really
give up.
think it is. But I have some really, really good news for you. And this is something that not many IELTS students know or understand. I think it's a bit of a secret. I don't know whether I should be telling you this, but in part 3, the examiner has lots of different questions that they could ask you. They have some easier questions and some more difficult questions. If you get a really difficult question, that is an exceptionally good sign. That means that the examiner thinks that you might be at a band 7, 8 or 9, and they're asking you these more difficult questions to really stretch your speaking ability and separate the band 7s from the band 8s from the band 9s. So now that you know if you get a difficult question that it's a good thing and you're very happy about it, how do you tackle those difficult questions? First and most important thing is always attempt an answer. But what if you have no idea? Well, you could do something like this.
I'm not too familiar with the topic of AI and its relation with education. However, in my knowledge, I do know that AI is developing more and more, and it might be able to replace some teachers' jobs or tasks, but it will not replace the trait of empathy.
Remember, it is not a knowledge test, it is not an IQ test, it is not a test of how much you know about that topic, it is a speaking test. Again, if you say nothing, what you're telling the examiner is, I don't deserve a high score, but if you attempt an answer, even if it is in that limited way, the examiner will think, okay, they might not know much about that topic, let's change topics, let's ask them about something slightly differently and see how they get on. You'll probably get something you do know about. But it is far more likely in part 3, you will get some kind of a topic that you do know something about. So how do you shine? How do you show the examiner that you do deserve about 7, 8 or 9? Watch this clip and think about what the student does in terms of how they structure their answer. What skills does a person need to be a great chef?
Interesting. I mean, from what I've heard, I've never worked as a chef or worked in a kitchen before, but I think it takes a lot of trial and error. So for that reason, I would imagine that the person would have to be very patient. And with that patience, you need to have an inherent passion for the food that you're making. I think chefs usually specialize in one or more cuisines. So just having an understanding of the background of the spices, where it comes from, of the meat, where it comes from. If you're not passionate about that, it can probably tire you out to be that invested in learning. So patience, passion, and a good environment, like access to good teachers, access to good books, access to good produce, would probably help you hone your craft a lot more.
So they did 4 things here. They directly answered the question. They then explained why they think that or why other people think that. They then backed it up with examples, or you could include a personal story. And then they developed it even more by showing the other side, or you could give a viewpoint. But here's the most important thing. Here's the key lesson for the entirety of the speaking test. What do all of these band 7, 8 or 9 students have in common? Well, when you're talking to a band 7, 8 or 9 student, it doesn't feel like a speaking test. It feels like having a normal conversation. Band 7, 8 or 9 students answer questions naturally, and they do that by steering the conversation to things that are easy and comfortable for them to talk about. They don't use tricks or hacks to try and cheat the test. It can't be cheated. Instead, they use the English they already have, the ability they already have to clearly communicate naturally with the examiner and show them the score they really deserve. And that.
Okay, so that is just about the end of the lesson. As he said there, the most important thing that band 7, 8 and 9 students do is they communicate how. What what word did he use? Naturally. Naturally, okay? So for the rest of the speaking lessons that I do with you over the months, that's what we are going to focus on, okay? That's what I want to hear you do. Just communicate naturally. That last person there who got the band 9, yes, she used some more, you can see why she got a band 9. She used quite a few more formal and academic words, okay? Some of which I know you won't know yet, okay? But I just want you to remember how she communicated. Don't worry about her vocabulary, okay? She was just like having a conversation, okay? She started off her answer by saying, that's interesting. I don't know much about that, but, okay, and then just carry on naturally. Does that make sense? So the most important thing is just be natural, okay? You are not doing anything from memory. It's not a memory test. You're just trying to communicate naturally. Just like you do when you first come into the classroom and I ask you questions about how is your week, what have you been doing, okay? You talk to me very naturally then. That is exactly the sort of thing you are aiming for. So over the next few months, of course, we will look at improving your vocabulary, okay? We will look at making sure you can talk for 2 minutes, okay? And you will look at making sure you follow the correct strategy for answering the band 3 questions. Answer the question, sorry, the part 3 question. Answer the question, explain, give an example if you can think of one. Okay. Next week, we will start to practice all of this. Okay, so I hope you have found this helpful, okay? I'm doing this so that you understand the structures of how to answer the questions and what our end goal is, what our aim is to get you communicating naturally. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you, everybody. It's great to see you in person, all right, always. So I hope you can all come again next Sunday. I look forward to seeing you all again there. Okay, thank you. Okay. What is your question, Ding Ming?
Oh no, I have the answer for me.
Oh, you have the answer already?
Yeah, I have the answer after see all the video.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Because after that, I don't know. He said it was for